Welcome to another Founder Wisdom podcast. We have Alexandra Morris Robson with us today. She's a founder and CEO at Augustine Jewels. Augustine Jewels makes the most exquisite handmade jewelry using natural gemstones and unique designs. On their website here, and there's more than just jewelries. There's also beautiful bowls that they make. They make even handbags and purses and a bunch of very neat items, which I'm going to show you in a moment. So I'm excited to jump right in. Alexandra, welcome to the podcast. Tell us yourself and what you're up to nowadays.
Well, thanks so much for having me on your podcast, first of all. That's great. Thank you. So I founded Augustine Jewels about 12 years ago, and we now have stores in London and New York. And I'm happy to say we've just been shortlisted for Creative Jewelry Designer of the Year. And we love gemstones, and we just love to make beautiful, beautiful pieces of jewelry. And we specialize in finding really beautiful gems. And that's what I do.
You started your career at Accenture, right? Like a decade there. Why did you pivot from that to owning a jewelry company?
Good question. Well, I had done jewelry design on my gap year when I was 18 in Paris. I went to design school at a school called ESMOD, and I actually designed a whole heap of jewelry there and won some awards with Swatch for some designs. And then when I was at jewelry school, I actually got into Cambridge and decided that I couldn't really turn down Cambridge University. And so I went to Cambridge, and my whole life changed from that moment. And I ended up taking a career in consulting. I was in retail and consumer, and I was there for well over a decade, I think 12, 13 years. And I ended up being head of CRM for the consumer and retail division, and then it just got too much really with the children. By then I had several children, and I was just traveling too much, and it was too impossible. But it turns out that being a consultant is very different to running your own business. And so it's a very different thing, starting a business and running it yourself, as opposed to advising. So I used to advise my clients on consumer and retail businesses and what they were doing wrong. And now I wish I had a consultant to tell me what I was doing wrong.
Right, but is it different, like giving advice and not being on the field and just working with theory rather than having the actual practice and knowing really what works? Like, is a consultant still relevant, or are they just like not enough in your business to know what's happening and give good advice?
Yeah, I think when you're a consultant, you're looking from the outside in, and it's quite easy to see the answer. So I used to advise a big consumer company that makes soft drinks. You would have known the name. And I looked after their whole brand portfolio. I think they had 847 brands. And it was quite obvious which brands were profitable, which ones were not, which campaigns were working, which campaigns were not. But what happened, so that was, as a consultant, quite easy to sort of point out new information. But when you're running your own business, you get really stuck in the detail, and you get very concerned about the day to day. What's the revenue today? Why is our sales down online? Why are sales down in store, or why are sales up here, there? And you get very into the detail, and it's quite difficult to step back and have a view as to where the business is going and what you're trying to achieve.
Right. And talking about having so many SKUs, you seem to have around that 850-ish SKUs on your website. How do you determine which ones are the most profitable? And is it good to have that many SKUs to give that many options to the consumer, or just to have less and focus on the most profitable?
It's definitely, from a business point of view, better to focus on the less more profitable, and that's what I always would have advised my clients to do in the past. But a creative business is slightly different, because you're constantly under pressure to create new ideas and new designs, and that's why people are attracted to your brand. So what we do is, every time when we bring out a new collection, we tend to cull other collections. Also, things have changed very much since I was consulting consumer companies, and actually now, we can turn around stock. We have factories in London and Jaipur. We can turn around stock in about 3 to 4 days if we have to. So, you can, it's not like the old days when you were holding so much stock and a lot of SKUs was problematic. Now it's not problematic.
Interesting. And tell me about like the bowls and the luxury leathers that you've gotten into. Like, was that more on the creative side of things, or was that just like, oh, my consumers actually asked for this, and I'm gonna give it to them, and I'm well positioned to place myself into that market?
Yeah, well, we do loads of events at sort of big fancy events like private jet shows and yacht shows and horse shows, and therefore we meet a lot of our customer base, and we know what that they want to. They like our brand and they love our designs, but we were sort of cross-selling, as it were, developing new areas in the luxury market. And I hadn't seen many bowls that were out there with jewels. So we developed bowls first, so a sort of beginnings of an interior range. We've got plans to do mirrors and trays and various other line extensions in that area. The leather, we're actually not going to continue because really our speciality and our knowledge is in metalwork, and all our workshops are in gold or silver or platinum. And it really is quite a different thing working in leather, but I enjoyed the experience of trying to do a new area, but we're not going to continue with that area for the moment.
And right now, everything is made in London. Tell me a bit more about your production capacity. Is every item custom made? You hold inventory?
Yeah, so no, we have we have 2 workshops in Jaipur in India, and we have our bespoke pieces are all made in London, but we're now too big to just make in London. The capacity was not there, so we moved and opened up in Jaipur. And we do keep stock of our best-selling lines, like the earrings I'm wearing from our South of France collection. We wear a lot of those. And our South of France rings, we sell so many of those. We keep a lot of stock in those because they're going out every day, every day, every day. But then for the more like this ring I'm wearing, which is more of a statement
Beautiful.
ring, we only keep around 10 of those in stock, and they're unusual, they're quite expensive, so but as I say, in Jaipur we can still turn something around in 3 to 4 days. We have once turned around a ring in 24 hours for somebody that wanted to propose quickly.
That's pretty cool. And the ring that you're wearing, is this one around 6,000 euros?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
and
it's a 18 karat citrine trillion set in yellow gold with enamel around it.
yeah, it's incredible. And this one, I guess that you need. Where do you order the stones from? Where do these come from?
So we're gem specialists, and so we know all the gem people all over the world. This citrine actually comes from India, but we buy a lot of our aquamarines in Sri Lanka. We buy our sapphires in Kashmir. So morganite, I love. It's my favorite stone. It's a beautiful, beautiful pink stone. We buy that in America. So the stones are all natural. We only work in natural stones, and they come from all over the world.
And how do you make sure that these are ethically sourced?
We're signed up to something called the Kimberley process, and we only work with suppliers who are also signed up to it. And the Kimberley process has all sorts of rules associated with it, no blood diamonds and various ethical standards that have to be adhered to. And then we have various other ethical standards that most of where we stock places we have to adhere to for all our stockists. So we really care about that as well. And we do also now work in lab diamonds and as well as natural diamonds. And some people think that labs are more ethical, but they actually take quite a lot of energy to make. So I'm not convinced that they're more ethical, but they're certainly all very beautiful.
Right, but these labs are getting exponentially better, right, than manual mining and traditional processes, right?
Well, the diamonds are very similar caliber, but they have a different certificate. They're just a completely different thing. They're a completely different market. I had a guy today who's making a bespoke ring, wanting a bespoke ring, and he wanted a quote for lab versus natural. It's a 1.5 carat typical engagement ring solitaire, and in labs it's only going to cost like £1,000, and in natural it's going to be around 12,000. So, it's just a completely different market, and the certificate actually says lab or natural. So it's just a completely different thing. But people say they're more ethical, but they're not necessarily, because they take so much energy to make them.
Right. What does your go-to-market strategy looks like? I know that you're doing these events. You're partnering with other luxury brands. You're also leveraging influencers. So tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, so we have, broadly speaking, 4 channels. We have our stores, we have stockists, we have online, and we have events. And within that, we have ready to wear and bespoke across all of those markets. And we find that Google works very well for us, Google marketing and SEO. We use both of those a lot. And we use influencers. We have about 6 influencers who are ambassadors for us, and we collaborate with them. And we're always looking for new influencers to work with as well, especially since we just opened up a new market in America. And so, yes, it's just a constant sort of everyday battle to keep on top of Pinterest and Google and LinkedIn and Twitter and Instagram and influencers and everything. It's just constantly out there.
And how do you pick out these partners, and how do you measure their ROI?
We can see their ROI because they all have a code, and so we can see how much they're selling for us. And in terms of reaching out, we just have a master list on Excel of about 200 influencers. And we like influencers who aren't too mega, because who are sort of in line with our brand, around about 30,000 followers. We can't, some of these big influencers are really very expensive now. And so we try to go for the market that we're very, very high end, we're very niche, and we're trying to find people that exactly match our client base.
Right. What's your innovation process? How do you decide how you're going to come up with the design of the next piece?
Well, it's just so exciting. It's just wonderful. So it's the favorite part of the business. It's really fun. So at the moment we're designing the Santorini collection. So we choose a luxury destination, usually where me or one of the team have been. And then we go and take in the colors of that place. So Santorini is all blue sea, and these white buildings, which are sort of domed and very striking against the blue visuals. So the collection, of course, is blue and white, because Santorini is blue and white, and gold, like the sun. So it only uses those 3 colors. It uses pearls, and it brings in the shapes of the shells. And we're using a wonderful stone called kyanite, which is a bit like a sapphire on steroids. It's really blue and dramatic and sparkly, but without the price tag of a sapphire. So we're using pearls and blue sapphire, blue kyanites, and your gold. And what we do is we brainstorm ideas about the collection, and then we come up with, in Photoshop, the 10 pieces which make up that collection. Then once we know that that's what it looks like, we go to computer aided design. We work to about 1/100th of a millimeter in our CADs, because the tiny diamonds are really, really, really tiny. So we work in computer aided design to this very specific detailed design level. And then we actually 3D print our samples. And then we make them first off in silver to check what they look like. And then once we're 100% happy with it, we move to gold.
Do you feel that you could use ChatGPT and such tools like AI image generators as well to generate like early prototypes instead of Photoshop?
Yeah, We could, yeah, it'd probably be quicker, but we're pretty quick in Photoshop. I mean, the danger with all these tools is that I used to draw everything by hand. And when you draw by hand, it takes hours. So to design this ring might take me 3 hours to draw it by hand. But what you're doing in those 3 hours is you're really thinking about the proportions, you're thinking about the design, and you're thinking about everything. And already in CAD, it's actually quite difficult in CAD to work in different dimensions. In 3D, it's more suited to square shapes and 2D. So I think the danger of using AI generated is you're going to do what the market wants rather than what the market will want in the
Right. Yeah.
future. And people then
Although
coming
you
to
can
us
prompt.
because they
Yeah.
like our design, and the design comes from my head, and nobody else can do that. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, well, you can outsource what's in your head into an AI. You can also feed it like pictures of past collections. So yeah, I would definitely try it out because you can get like a bunch of images. You can get like 20 images, and then you can choose from which one is best. I also get your process, but I think it would be nice to try that out. You mentioned luxury destinations, right? So two questions for you: like, what does luxury means to you, and two, how do you become an actual luxury destination, for example, Santorini?
Yeah, I think, what does luxury mean? It means something really, really beautiful. It means a place where you think, this makes me happy. And quite a lot of what I do is just making people happy. And it doesn't need to be somewhere that's glitzy, and it could be somewhere that's very glitzy because, of course, people who like luxury tend to populate beautiful areas. But there's plenty of beautiful areas, which is, this collection was the Aurora collection. So, you know, that's about the aurora in the northern lights in sort of northern Scandinavia. So it's all about beauty and making people feel relaxed and happy, and being evocative of that feeling and that place. And I think certain places that we've chosen, such as Gstaad or Santorini or the northern parts of Scandinavia, you know, they're really exceptionally beautiful. And that's what we're trying to let people feel that emotion. A lot of people come to us and they have a problem. They're going through a difficult time, and the jewelry pulls them up, and that's what, we're trying to achieve.
Right. And how do you create such a luxury hub like a Gestalt, for example, which I didn't know about? That I know about the place where they organize the WEF and so forth, but yeah, I didn't know about Gestalt. How do you create such a place? Is it about taking first the nature's topography and the nature's attribute, and then stacking amenities on top of that and creating a culture around the place? How do you transform that? How do you make a Monaco, for example, or a Cannes, like how does that happen over time?
That's really interesting. I mean, I studied history at Cambridge, and I do think the development of culture and how does that happen is really interesting. And I think some of those places you mentioned, like Monaco, is obviously a tax haven, so it's attracting a certain type. I wouldn't personally say Monaco is that beautiful, but it
Or
attracts.
exclusive nowadays, because it's way less exclusive than it was.
Yeah. So I think what happens often is a place is naturally beautiful, such as Gstaad or Santorini, and then it attracts artists and creative people who like the beauty of it. And then from that,
Adventurous.
yeah, and then from that you get the patrons, and then you develop that hub of people that share that same interest. It might be that in Gstaad it's skiing, and in Santorini it's the water or whatever. So it's people with different interests. And then I think around that you start to develop a different culture. So, for example, Ibiza has a very particular sort of clubbing culture that would be a very different feel to Monaco. But they're both beach places. So I do think it's different. And of course, luxury changes over time. The same place is not, Newport, Rhode Island was the height of the American Gilded Age, and I do lectures on the history of jewelry. But Newport, Rhode Island has fallen away now to, people want to go to the Far East. Cultures change and trends change.
Let's finish this off on futuristic trends. Do you sometimes wish that you could fly a spaceship over Jupiter's cloud and come back with a bunch of exclusive diamonds?
Oh gosh. I would love to get into space. I'm really fascinated by space and whether there's extraterrestrial life. I would actually prefer to use some new stones. I'm really interested in new stones, and I'm sure there are planets out there with new stones. And we try to be creative in our use of stones, hence why in the Santorini collection we're using kyanite, a new, an lesser known stone, but it's so beautiful. And we've used morganite, one of my favorite stones. So we're always searching for new stones. So if I went to Jupiter, I'd be looking for something that we didn't have on Earth that was really beautiful.
Right. And do these stones have good health properties, for example, because there's gravity, there's mass around these stones, there's minerals in there. So it's like, have there been like documented scientific health claims to these stones, or is it still like a bit in the astrology realm?
Well, before I started really working a lot with gemstones, I thought it was all nonsense. But there are certain stones that are meant to improve your health, particularly rose quartz, for example, would be a very health-inducing one. But since I've been working in gemstones, I really think there is something in it, because I can put 5 different stones on somebody's hand, and one of those stones will make that person's eyes light up. And I can put those same 5 diamonds on a different person's hand, and a different stone will make that other person's eyes light up. So there is something going on that different stones are reacting differently with the psychology of each individual and making them happy, basically. And I
Right.
can't explain it. And I think also some stones have a different feeling to them. So if you take a blue topaz, sky blue topaz, and you compare it, put it next to an aquamarine, they look very different. They look very similar in color. You'd be hard pressed to find the difference. But the sky blue topaz makes you feel energetic, and the aquamarine makes you feel calm. So I do think that there are, and the aquamarine is a lot more expensive than the sky blue topaz. So, there are these differences in stones that do seem to affect the human mind, and I can't really explain it. And as far as I know, there's no scientific explanation.
Interesting. Thanks for coming on, Alexandra. Where can people find out more about you?
They could check us out at www.augustinejewels.com, or they can come and find us at 75 Ledbury Road in Notting Hill, or 35 East 65th Street in New York.